Hey everybody, it's Charlie from Moto, and the BMW R1300 GS might just be the top of the food chain when it comes to long-distance adventure-style motorcycles. The BMW R blank GS, the 1200, the 1250, now the 1300, has been a staple for anyone looking to either ride to Starbucks in the morning, ride to their office, or ride across the planet. And I actually just got back from riding across a small portion of the planet, about 1,100 miles from Denver all the way here to Southern California on this exact bike. And that is why it is dirty and covered in bugs and has about 1,100 more miles on it than just a few days ago. But if you want to see that video, check the link below. I think it'll be coming out a little bit after, no, I think this one will come out after that. So that video should already be published. That's going to be a full, what was this bike like to take on that huge sort of trip. We did off-roading, we did high-speed riding, hot, cold, wet. I got everything in those 2 days. But this video is our Commuter test. This is a set route. We do it the same with every single bike. We do about 43 miles. We test the fuel economy, and we talk about what this bike would be like to ride in kind of your daily average sort of commuter situation. So this is the adventure version of the R1300 GS, which means we have a 7.9 gallon fuel tank in here. Absolutely massive. It allowed me to do many hundreds of miles at all sorts of speeds. We've got and BMW probably doesn't call them crash bars, but essentially bars here that you could either mount accessories on or offer protection for the engine so that if you drop this thing over while you're doing your adventuring, the engine stays safe and stays pretty easy to pick up. We've got fairly road-oriented tires. What are we running here? Anarchy Adventures, looks like. So these were pretty good for running, again, higher speeds, but then they did me well off-road also in Colorado. And then we have the accessory side cases on there. And I decided to do the Commuter test with the side cases on to talk about the width of the bike when lane filtering here in California. But also, I mean, if you're going to be using this bike daily or really for any sort of long-distance riding, you're probably going to want some cargo on here. The ability to just pop these open and throw stuff in there rather than having to wear it. So anything else we need to talk about before we go? I don't think so. I think it's about time to throw in my gear, put a leg over this, and head to the fuel station and get started. But let's do a little cold start on the bike. Have not started it yet today. Oh, I should also mention this is the automatic version of this bike. It's got the ASA, Automated Shift Assistant. So let's turn it on. Looks like we're in Dynamic Pro now. Let's cycle to road. And there it is, the 1300cc boxer twin engine comes to life. I don't think we have the Akrapovic exhaust on this one. I think this is the standard exhaust, so I don't have an exact build figure for this bike as I'm shooting this. I should have it by the time I publish the video. I imagine it's just a hair under $30,000. So much to talk about with this motorcycle from a daily rider sort of standpoint. First of all, right when I throw a leg over it there, it's got adaptive ride height, so it actually raises the height of the motorcycle with electronic suspension as I get over about 30 miles per hour or so. So the bike is lower, actually fairly easy to get onto here when we're stopped, and then as we get moving it picks up so that the suspension can work more efficiently, or effectively, I guess. Right there, I can feel the bike lifting itself up. It's kind of cool. The first few times you notice it, you're like, oh, something's different. And then once you know what's going on, you're like, oh, I see. And then about, I think, 15 miles per hour or so, drops down. You can kind of see the A arrow right there telling me the auto height's adjusting. I believe you can lock it into its full upward height. And then if you're Enduro Pro mode, which is kind of the off-road mode, then it kind of stays in its lowest height. So yeah, a good bit of thought into that one. And that's going to be the theme of this bike. There's so much engineering and thought and design and care put into this motorcycle. It's pretty sweet. Adaptive windscreen as well. You can see it coming down. There we are, all topped off. Fire it up. We're ready to roll. Now, this being the automatic version of this bike, I am going to do a mixture of transmission settings, some drive and some manual, but most of the test I'm going to do in drive because that works pretty well. Pretty much the only time that I find myself wanting to manually shift this bike is when I'm riding spiritedly. If I'm just riding around town like this, going into work, whatever, I'm okay with automatic. And I fully believe that that's how most owners of this bike would use it. If they opt for ASA and they're just riding it in on a daily commute style like this, they're probably just going to use automatic mode. So that's how I'm going to do most of this testing. I do also think it'll be a little bit more fuel efficient because it's going to be upshifting probably much quicker than I would. But other than that, we're going to be riding as though you were just heading into the office. I'm not going to be bringing this thing out too strong. It's got 140 horsepower and 115 pound-feet of torque out of this Boxer Twin, and we're not going to be using most of it. We're going to be doing a mixture of slower speed, city riding, suburban 55-mile-an-hour roads, and a stretch of highway. We're going to be heading out to the Pacific Coast Highway as well, seeing how that is today. 83 degrees already, so it should be very nice on the coast. Tire pressures admittedly might be a tad bit low. Let's take a look here. Yeah, few PSI low, so I'm going to compensate for that slightly with our measurements, but we're pretty much right there where we need to be. Plus, if you were riding this bike daily and you weren't loading up the back of it, you'd probably run a few lower PSI on the rear tire. And immediately getting back in the saddle of this bike. Gosh, it's just such a comfortable motorcycle. Now, I had the new R1300 GS a few years ago, and after my few weeks with that bike, I said at the end of the review, I really want to spend more time with this motorcycle because there's so much going on here. There's so much to learn and experience, and it's almost doing the engineers and designers and BMW as a brand a disservice to not spend extended time on the bike. So I was really thankful to get the opportunity to ride it across country and in so many different environments. So it's kind of cool to get it back here now, do our DM commuter test, and just see what this bike is like in the environment where I've tested so many other bikes. But I will say, it is a disconnected riding experience. If you're somebody who's coming off of a motorcycle that's more analog, that's less filtered, you might be a bit turned off by the R1300. It's very comfortable, it's very smooth, but it feels filtered. That's the best way to put it. Even when I was off-roading this bike on some fairly moderate trail, I was going over big rocks and I was going over loose sections and downhills and uphills, and it felt like I was riding through a computer. It felt like I was piloting a machine that was capable of more than I was. And for what I was using it for, off-roading in Colorado in the middle of a multi-day trip, that was a good thing. But again, if you're somebody who's coming off of simpler motorcycles, this might feel a bit strange to you. It's shifting itself, it's adjusting its own height, all the throttle's going through computer, the braking is going through computers. Yeah, it's just it's an advanced experience. It's like a spaceship on two wheels. But in some ways, also like a rocket ship. Because, yeah, you got a lot of grunt from this motor. Quick gear check for today. We are donned in our Revit gear. Revit kind of ADV daily rider build out, if you will. I've got my off-track jacket, my boundless boots, my Ortez jeans, and my dirt gloves. I like this get up because the jeans just look like normal jeans. In fact, I wore them in to drop our daughter off at daycare here today and kind of just looked like I was heading to work. And the boots are subtle enough that I was able to wear them all day riding across country and be comfortable, but then also offer a little bit of ankle protection. I wouldn't want them for anything super hardcore off-road. And then this jacket is great as well for a daily riding jacket. It looks nice enough to be worn on a bike like this, or rugged enough to be worn on something like a little dual sport. It's got air vents that I've already got open for today. And then the dirt gloves. I like them because they have this, here, let me take advantage of our adaptive cruise real quick. They've got this portion right here, which is very important to me in a glove. It's a wrist slider, because if you get thrown off your bike and you come down on your wrists, you don't want to grip and grab right here. You want your hands to slide. And that's what this portion is right here. It's a hard section of the glove that's going to slide on my wrists. So, got those for the gear, and then I am wearing my Arai Contour X helmet. This one I have in kind of a highlighter yellow color because Yeah, people are probably going to see me on a big red GS, but when I'm riding a bike like one of my little dual sports, I want to make sure people have a better chance of seeing me. So I like the high vis on my Arai, and I like the flexibility of the helmet too. It was very, very comfortable for our whole cross-country ride, and is going to be safe and protective. I mean, that's the main reason why people buy Arais, is they are the safest helmets on the road, and that's why I wear them. And then lastly, I have my H-Move backpack from Hellite. This is an airbag, and I actually have the backpack section removed, so it's just functioning as an airbag vest, electronically triggered, and most importantly, it has my water bladder in it so that I can stay hydrated for this ride. So you can see the bike downshifting for me as I come into this intersection. And this bike dances its nearly 600 pounds weight so nicely. That's one of the most impressive things about this motorcycle. The width helps it be so balanced. You got to think about somebody walking across a tightrope. They carry that big wide bar that helps with their balance, that smooths everything out and lessens the impacts of getting off balance. The same thing happens with this motorcycle. The extra width of the 8-gallon fuel tank and the crash bars and the handlebars and the saddlebags, that makes this whole bike very, very stable. So despite being big and heavy, I can really comfortably and smoothly toss this around. It's like a big ballet dancer. I suppose I should have mentioned how you can manually shift this bike. I mentioned it at the beginning that you can, but I didn't talk about it. The BMW ASA bikes come with a foot shifter on there. And without the clutch lever, aside from that, this feels like a normal manual bike if you're shifting it. I'll put it into manual right here, and then at a stop, I just don't have my, I don't have to pull in a clutch or anything. The bike's doing the clutch for me. And as this light turns green, simply roll on the accelerator, come around the corner, and I shift with my foot. It feels just like you're shifting a quick shifter manual BMW bike. And you can do that manual shifting at any time. So even if I am in automatic mode right here, I see the D, I can click down and I got 4th gear, accelerate, and then I'm like, all right, go back up to 6, and then the bike will take back over for me. It's a nifty setup, and it does really work well. We actually had the ASA on the BMW R1300 RT, which was a fantastic motorcycle, and we compared it against Honda's dual clutch automatic setup. So if you want to see that, check the link below. I'll try to remember to throw that in the description as well, but if I don't, you can find it on the channel. And the Honda has some advantages, the BMW has some advantages. Neither is perfect, but it is a fantastic addition to an expensive bike like this. Now, if you live in California or another area where it is legal to lane filter, you will find yourself second guessing some of these gaps on the R1300, especially the Adventure being as wide as it is. Now, I will say you're not as wide as you think you are. Even with these cases, pretty much about my handlebars is still the main width, which is not crazy wide compared to most motorcycles. But it is still enough for you, like even in this situation, yeah, that Nissan and that box truck up there, maybe if I were on a little street bike or something, I might try to slip through, but you just find yourself kind of sitting and being patient more often on this bike. But those of you who are veteran lane filters, you know, you could be on a big old bagger or something like that and still figure out how to kind of shift your way through traffic. So it's certainly doable on this bike, and I have done it on this bike. I'm sure I will here if I get better opportunity. It's just maybe not quite as much as some other machines. And this guy hugging the inside lane doesn't help. Warm, cloudy morning out here on PCH today. 76 degrees. A nice little wave rolling in there. Of course, this would be a fantastic motorcycle to ride the coasts on. Comfortable, upright, adaptive. You got your heated grips for those cooler mornings. Heated seats as well. Both functional. And it does block so much air, even with the windscreen all the way down in its electronic adjustable position, that you find yourself maybe getting a little warm in the hotter areas. So riding on the coast here, Pacific Coast, you'd be nice and comfortable just about the whole way. And then coming into Laguna Beach, a good opportunity to talk about the engine and its sound. Admittedly, this is one of the few detractions from the R1300 in my personal opinion, I don't care for the Boxer twin. The character of the motor fits the bike. Don't get me wrong there. I love the gruntiness, even here in 6th gear at 45 miles per hour. We've got the torque to really get this heavy motorcycle up and at 'em with no hesitation. And I like the way that that keeps the weight down low and, again, nicely balanced. We were talking about the width of the bike earlier in the video. I just don't love the sound and the feel of the engine. It's pretty well balanced, but you do feel it going back and forth when you get on the accelerator like that. And I'll talk about it more on the highway section because that's where it really gets on me. But you're pretty much always hearing this engine. And for some motorcyclists, they're going to love that. They love hearing their engine all the time and being connected to it. But for me, riding a big borderline touring motorcycle like this, and especially when I was on something like the RT version of this bike, I kind of want the engine to fade into the background. I want to focus more on the experience. I want to listen to my music. I want to talk to my passengers. I don't want to just constantly be hearing that, almost a tractor-like sound here from this bike. So it's not loud, but it's also not butter smooth refined like you get from some of the other engines in this class. But at the same time, it's also not rowdy and enjoyable to really sing out and listen to either. It's just kind of there doing its job, which again is fine. But for a $30,000 motorcycle, that's my one nitpick. That's what I would like to be different, is the engine. But I know that is the GS. I mean, that is the R1300 GS's character. It'll probably always be that way. It'll always be a Boxer twin. And again, I'm fine with it. I just don't love it. Here we go. A little bit more lane filtering. Successful this time. Again, as long as you're confident, you kind of just send it. It works out. The automatic works nicely around town. It's feathering clutch for me. Then when I need to get on it, I can come to a stop. Bike pulls the clutch in, and because we're down in the lower suspension setting, I got my left foot down. And again, these kind of slower areas, despite being such a big bike, you're going to appreciate that you can get your feet down nicely. I am 5'10", 165 pounds, 32-inch inseam. And this bike does not feel cumbersome for me in most riding scenarios. The only time it's really a lot and a handful is moving it around the garage. 3rd Street Hill. We've obviously got all sort of electronic aids that would keep us from looping this bike. Wheelie control, traction control, advanced ABS, all going to be using accelerometers and certain evaluations of our riding scenario to keep the bike underneath me safely. And in fact, we have even more than that. We have radar adaptive cruise control, which we're going to be seeing on the highway. We have forward collision warning and active braking assist. I actually have that turned off because in an area where you can legally lane filter like I have been, the system will freak out thinking you're about to hit the car in front of you when really you're just filtering through. But if I lived in an area where that were not legal, I would certainly be using that. Then on top of that, you have blind spot monitoring, which again, we'll see on the highway, but yet another active safety feature here. And I'm sure there are other elements that I am forgetting, but this bike does a lot to try to keep you safe. And then if you do have an accident, you have BMW's active SOS right here. And I did actually drop the last R1300 that I had when we were doing a little bit of off-roading, and it beeped at me and said, hey, if you don't turn this off, we're going to contact emergency services. I thought that was great. That's exactly what I would want to happen. If I fell off the bike and I were incapacitated, I would want it to phone the emergency services. We are coming up to our spirited riding section. Maybe you've got a part in your commute that's a little twisty and fun and you want to open the bike up. So to do that, we're going to go from road mode up to Dynamic Pro, optioned on this bike. That will liven up the will liven up the automatic transmission and its shifter algorithm. However, these are usually the situations where I find myself wanting to be in manual. We're going to let that Jetta get a little bit of space and we'll head off. You can see here, I stopped on this hill, I can squeeze the brake and release it, and the bike holds the brake for me. So I can put both my feet down, rest my hands and my feet. The bike holds the brake until I roll onto the accelerator, which I will do in a little bit, because we're going to need some gap here in order to fully stretch the legs of this Boxer twin. All right, here we go. We're gonna get held up, I know it. But you get the idea. I mean, that was about half throttle. This machine has no shortage of power, no trouble picking itself up. Because you gotta think, it's built to be able to take you and a passenger and a whole trip's worth of gear, go any sort of elevation, any sort of riding situation, and get yourself well up into triple digit speeds. So if it's just you down at sea level like this, this bike is plenty quick enough. And these Anarchy Adventure tires do a nice job of gripping the pavement as well. It's really more of a 90-10 tire, meaning 90% off-road oriented, 10% off, 90 on, 10% off. You can get a more aggressive tire package from BMW, but this one actually did better than I expected when we took it on some trail. And now that we have gotten our twisted riding out of the way, since this Tundra is going nice and slow, we're going to go back to road mode and back to automatic. We do have a few of those other ride modes. We've got Rain, very straightforward there, and Enduro Pro, which you'll use for going off-road. That will not be today. Standing up on the bike, pretty comfortable to do at my size. Again, 5'10", 32-inch inseam. I can fully extend my legs and my arms, just the slightest bit of bend in my arms if need be. Now, the big tank on the GSA does make it a little bit harder to get up and forward on the bike. So keep that in mind, but for pretty much any sort of standing riding, you should be able to do pretty darn well on this bike. Coming into the end of this city portion here on the R1300 GSA. Like I said, for a bike that weighs as much as it does and gets up as high as it does, it's actually not bad for putzing around town. Like I said, when you are fully static here, if the bike kind of starts to get its way over, it does take some leg strength to keep it up and some core strength. So super short riders, and you have some trouble with this motorcycle, but as soon as it's moving, it balances its weight out really nicely. And between the automatic, the safety functionalities, and the way the bike carries its weight, and the great suspension for kind of bumpier roads, it's not a bad bike to zip around town with. But it's certainly no lightweight kind of city zip around machine, and it's not fun around town. It's just, it's good, if that makes sense, that difference. But getting up to these higher speed roads is where the R1300 really shines. Suburbia, it's great here. It's also great out on trail, but it works well here too. You can see us climbing up this hill, letting the transmission shift through its forward gears, getting our way up to speed. And this is where you start to take advantage of the adaptive cruise control. It's where you get the blind spot monitoring coming in, so you don't gotta crank your head around every time if you don't want. And you just get to let this engine sort of sing around in its middle strong torque band. Wind is being blocked nicely, not only by the main windscreen, but these little side wind protectors as well. Let's talk about some of the other functionalities of the bike. This right here is a wireless device charger, which is fantastic. You can see I don't have a phone in it at the moment, but throughout my whole trip, I had my iPhone there getting charged up and giving me my nav. And I kind of appreciate BMW doing it this way, because technically we do have a built-in navigation system, but it's not fully built in. You have to have your phone plugged into the system right here, I believe. Yeah, way down in there. There's a place to plug in your phone, and then you can run BMW's nav. But most people just want to use their own device, whether it's Google Maps or Apple Maps or Waze or Reaver or anything like that. You probably want to just have your own device going right there to do your navigation. That's what I did, and it's awesome that the phone charges itself. Other than that, the onboard computer here is controlled with this scroller and clicker knob on the left side, as well as some of these up and down buttons. It works very well. BMW has been doing infotainment on bikes, if you will, for a long time, and they've really got a nice intuitive system laid out. It's easy when you're stopped, it's easier when you're moving. It's very nice to get around, see all of your different information. You can bring up screens like this sport menu that show you more what you'd want to see if you were riding sporty. You got your tack, you got your lean angles, your brake pressures, your traction control, and then again you can come on back, just get normal information, or bring up just a nice straightforward simple riding screen. The seat on the GSA is wider and larger and arguably more comfortable than the standard GS seat. I've been entirely comfortable this ride. The ergonomics are good. The only thing is, sometimes I do wish I could get the handlebars a little bit closer to me, but then I understand that if I were standing, then it'd kind of be awkwardly close. So it does split the difference nicely. It does look like you could do some degree of adjustment to roll them further away, but I think they're about as close as they can go right now. And again, that just means a taller rider is going to be able to sit that much further back on the seat and be that much more comfortable. Not only that, but if you're doing some longer riding, you can technically put your feet up onto these crash bars here and kind of have like a highway peg setup. It's a nice way to change up your knee position. Passenger is going to be entirely comfortable on the back also. They've got a heated seat, they've got places to hold on, and the suspension will actually adapt, I believe, for 1 or 2 people. Having mastered the suburbs, let's hop on the 5 freeway. Again, another place where the R1300 is remarkably talented, despite being a motorcycle that can be ridden pretty hardcore off-road. Here we are up at 70, and it does seem that traffic is already coming to a stop. Do we have an accident or something? We very well might. Well, this is a perfect example or opportunity to first lane filter, and then if we get back up to a crawl, show you the adaptive cruise control. Now, I will say the cruise control will work adaptive up to 100 miles per hour, and it'll work, oh, thank you, Mr. Suburban. It'll work with the adaptive cruise control off up to a figure that I have not tested. I know from experience that it'll do well up into the triple digits, somewhere around 120, 25. I tried testing way out in the desert, but theoretically, I guess it could be set to any number because it just kept going. How is traffic this bad at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday? There must be some sort of accident. Unfortunately, that is going to throw off our figure. Now, that is one aspect of the automatic transmission that is a bit of a downside, is you cannot rev bomb your engine, if you will. And with the stock exhaust, it's not going to do a ton anyway, but I know oftentimes in these lane filtering sort of situations, you don't quite want to honk at people necessarily, but you just want to rev your engine up so that they know you're there. They kind of announce your presence a little bit, and you can't do that without having a clutch. All right, we are finally freed, but man, did that take a while. So certainly going to skew our result. I watched our fuel economy go down during that time, and it makes sense because I know this bike is capable of over 50 miles per gallon when cruising at 70 miles per hour, especially in some traffic. So we're going to give a little bit of a bump once we get back to the fuel station and fill this thing up. But now that we're rolling, we'll show the adaptive cruise control in action. So I can set it here. I'm going to put it all the way up to 70, but we are traveling 58, and the bike is slowly accelerating for me here, keeping a distance from the car in front of me. I can customize that following distance. Right now, this is the closest setting, which is about just over 1 second of following distance, I would say, following time. So a little close, but comfortable amount. And then just a quick flip of the brakes or turning off the cruise right there disables it. Other than that, though, this is a great place to be on the highway. You've got nice upright comfortability, visibility, power, of course, no shortage there. Yeah, nice place to be. But again, I will kind of point out that even cruising here at 70 miles per hour, you hear the engine quite a bit. You hear that? I don't know how well you'll be able to hear it over the noise of the other vehicles and the wind, but you just, it kind of feels like you're in an airplane. Sounds like you're in an airplane because this motor is just always there, even cruising at 70 here. And of course, get on it at all and you really hear it. The suspension as well works so well in highway settings, any sort of roads. It dampens so nicely. It's a little bit soft, but you want that when you're just cruising, and you switch into Enduro Pro and it tightens up a little bit, but really is a fantastically comfortable bike. So no surprise here that the R1300 GS makes for a great bike on the highway. And no surprise that this bike makes for a great commuter. It's a great bike. I mean, that's pretty much the long and short of it. This is a motorcycle engineered to be just about the best you can get in so many different riding scenarios. If you needed a bike to do anything, this would be it. I mean, this would be it's not even a jack of all trades, it's a king of all trades bike. All of that being said, would I get it as my daily rider? The answer is no. This is not why I would ride daily. I would own this bike if I had the opportunity, if my kids were out of the house or never had kids, and I could go regularly on long rides. I mean, that's the big thing, is you load this motorcycle up and you go do big miles, whether it's big miles on pavement, off-road, mixture, whatever have you, this bike will do it, and it'll do it really well. Can it be used as a little daily run-around bike? Sure, of course. You can ride it sporty, you can ride it calm, you can ride it comfortable, you can throw a passenger on it, any sort of weather. It'll do it. It's just not why I ride. If I'm going to be getting myself geared up and I'm going to be on two wheels, I want to be on something lighter weight and sprightly and just fun. And this is mature. Any motorcycle is fun, don't get me wrong, but that's not the heart and soul of this bike. The heart and soul is excellence and competency. And speaking of competency, we are looking at 46 miles per gallon according to the bike's readout. So let's get it to the pump here and see what our calculated figure is. What are you doing, Volkswagen? Why are you parked there? You're entirely blocking my way to the pump. You too, Mercedes. What are you guys? What? Neither of you are using the pumps. You're electric. What are you guys, taking over the shell or something? My goodness. Some people. Anyway, let's fill it up. 0.9 gallons going back into the tank here, the big 7.9 gallon tank. We traveled 42.9 miles divided by that 0.9 is giving us 48 miles per gallon here on the GS Adventure. And like I said, that highway portion was really thrown off, so I'm going to give it a 1 mile per gallon bump and say 49 MPG when you're doing daily riding here in mixed riding conditions, nice and easy, on the BMW R1300 GS Adventure. And the way I look at it is, despite having to use premium fuel, that is an impressive number for a motorcycle with this sort of aerodynamic windsock aspects, the width, the cases, and the weight, stopping and going. That's pretty cool. Because if you take that 49 mile per gallon figure and multiply it by the 7.9 gallon fuel tank, you get an incredible 380 miles of mixed riding range here on this bike. So if you are going to use it as a daily rider, you can put on big miles to the office, no problem, and you're barely ever going to have to stop and hit the pump. But if you're using it for its intended purpose, if going out and doing some real adventure, it's nice that you can travel high speeds, off-road, whatever you need to do, and again, not be tethered to a fuel pump. So an amazingly impressive motorcycle, fantastic at doing big trips, off-road, on-road, etc. But, maybe not the most casual rider here to fire up daily. So thank you all so much for watching. If you do want to see more on the R1300 GSA, check the link below for our road trip review, and we will see you on the next one. I'm Charlie from DM Moto, and as always, ride on.